I sat in my car, staring at my phone. The screen lit up with a text from Lisa, my wife. "I'm running late, just finishing up some work." It was the third time this week she had used that excuse. As I put my phone down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Our once vibrant marriage had turned into a series of monotone conversations, and I had begun to notice subtle changes in her demeanor. She was easily irritated, distant, and often lost in her thoughts. It felt like I was talking to a ghost of the woman I had married. We met in college, both young and reckless, filled with dreams and aspirations. I remember how Lisa would laugh at my terrible jokes and how her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her future. But somewhere along the line, life had gotten in the way. Jobs, responsibilities, and the mundane rhythm of everyday life had dulled that spark. I started to wonder if she still felt that way about me. The signs of trouble were there, I just didn't want to see them. I brushed them off, convincing myself that it was just a phase. Maybe. It was stress from her job as a marketing executive, but deep down I knew something was wrong. I started putting the pieces together: the late nights at work, the occasional missed calls, and her sudden obsession with her appearance. I tried to ignore it, but that nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. One Saturday, I planned a surprise dinner to rekindle our connection. I cooked her favorite meal and set the table with candles and flowers. I was excited, thinking maybe this would bring us back to where we once were. But as I waited for her to come home, I couldn't shake off the anxiety that had been building inside me. When she finally walked through the door, her eyes were wide and there was a look of panic on her face. "Oh wow, this looks amazing, but I can't stay, I have a thing," she stammered, glancing at her phone, her hands trembling slightly. "A thing? Lisa, it's Saturday night. What thing could be more important than this?" I pressed, frustration bubbling up. "I'll explain later," she snapped, glancing at the clock, and just like that, she was out the door, leaving my heart heavy with uncertainty. Days passed and my suspicions only grew. I decided to take a proactive approach. I started tracking her movements just to see if my fears had any ground. I took note of which nights she came home late and who she was with when she went out with the girls. It was a slippery slope into paranoia, but I couldn't stop myself. It was one fateful Tuesday when the truth slapped me in the face. I had come home early from work, eager to surprise her with another home-cooked meal. Instead, I found her in our living room, completely unaware of my presence. She was tangled up in conversation with my brother, Jason. The way they laughed intimately, the way they looked at each other, it made my stomach turn. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I had seen them together before, but always dismissed it as brotherly affection. But this was different. There was something electric in the air, a connection that went beyond familial ties. I felt my heart race as I realized that my worst fears were coming true. I quietly slipped back out, my mind racing. I couldn't believe my brother would betray me like this. I remember feeling a mixture of rage and betrayal flood over me. How could they do this? How could Lisa, the woman I trusted with everything, be so deceitful? I had a decision to make. I could confront them right then and there, or I could wait. I chose the latter, planning my next move with careful precision. The pain of the discovery was fresh, but I needed to gather my thoughts before I confronted them. I wanted to make sure I was ready for the fallout to come. The next days felt like a blur of anger and heartbreak. I needed to talk to Lisa. I needed answers. But little did I know that this was just the beginning of an emotional roller coaster that would change everything. I was ready for the confrontation, and I was going to make sure that both of them paid for what they had done. The night of the confrontation loomed over me like a storm cloud. I spent the entire day strategizing my approach, packing around my house, rehearsing what I wanted to say. I knew I could let anger take over completely. I had to remain calm, collected. But as the evening approached, I could feel the tension building inside me like a pressure cooker ready to explode. When Lisa walked through the door that evening, I could see she was in an unusually good mood. She greeted me with her usual excitement, a bright smile plastered on her face. I forced a smile back, but inside my heart was racing. "Hey, babe, I got off work early. I was thinking we could watch a movie or something," she suggested, oblivious to the storm brewing behind my calm facade. Yeah, I think we need to talk first, I replied, keeping my voice steady. You can pick the movie after that. Her smile faded, and for a brief moment I saw something flicker in her eyes: fear, guilt. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I held it in. Instead, I led her to the living room where I had set the stage for our confrontation. Lisa, I saw you with Jason the other day. I started, watching her face carefully for any sign of remorse or panic. You both looked, really cozy. What are you talking about? She stammered, her tone shifting from confusion to defensiveness. You must have seen it wrong. Jason is my brother-in-law. It's just how we are. Just how you are, I repeated, incredulous. You think I didn't notice the way he looked at you, the way you laughed together? It's clear there's something more going on. Lisa crossed her arms, a defensive gesture that infuriated me further. You're being ridiculous. There's nothing between us. Then why do you feel the need to hide your phone? Why the late nights? Why the sudden change in your behavior? I demanded, my voice rising. This isn't just my imagination. I know something going on. She took a deep breath, her expression shifting from anger to something resembling sorrow. Okay, fine, but it's not what you think. Jason and we just have a connection. It's innocent. Innocent. My mind reeled. I couldn't wrap my head around her words. Innocent. You think being intimate with my brother is innocent? Are you serious right now? I didn't mean to hurt you, I just felt alone. We've been growing apart and Jason was there for me, she exclaimed, her voice trembling now. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. The anger melted away, replaced by a profound sense of betrayal. So you just decided to go ahead and cheat on me instead of talking about it. You couldn't even confront me about your feelings. I didn't know how, she yelled, tears streaming down her face. I was scared of losing you, losing me. The irony stung. You lost me the moment you decided to betray my trust. You had a choice, Lisa. You chose him over me. She shook her head, her sobs echoing through the living room. Please don't do this. I can fix it. I'll cut ties with him, I promise. But I wasn't interested in promises. I could feel my heart hardening, the pain morphing into a cold resolve. No, Lisa, you don't get to decide how this ends. You've made your choices and now I have to make mine. I watched her crumble as the weight of my words hit her. The facade of our marriage was shattered, and in that moment clarity washed over me. I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies. I had loved her fiercely, but love wasn't enough when betrayal had seeped into the foundation. As she continued to cry, I felt an unexpected sense of calmness. I had to think about myself now. I had to consider the consequences of this betrayal and how I planned to move forward. I took a deep breath, allowing the reality of the situation to settle in. I need time to think, Lisa. I can't just forgive and forget. I turned away, leaving her sobbing in our living room, the weight of my decision bearing heavy on my chest. The emotional turmoil that followed was relentless. I felt like I was trapped in a waking nightmare, my heart aching for the love I had lost. But as the days turned into a blur of sorrow and anger, I realized something essential. I needed to regain control. My brother had betrayed me, and now he was going to pay for it. I had no idea how I would execute my plan, but I was determined to ensure that both of them faced the consequences of their actions, and I would make sure everyone in our family knew the truth. After the confrontation with Lisa, I felt a strange mix of clarity and confusion. I spent hours replaying every moment in my head, every laugh they shared, every glance that lingered longer than it should have. I was furious, but I was also deeply hurt. I had to figure out how to navigate this betrayal and ensure that it didn't just end with a quiet goodbye. If they thought they could get away with this, they had another thing coming. The thought of revenge became my constant companion. I had always been the calm, rational one in our relationship, but now that side of me was overshadowed by a burning desire for justice. I didn't want to just get even. I wanted them to feel the weight of their choices, to understand the gravity of what they had done. I decided to start by gathering evidence. I needed something concrete to expose them both. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home, moving silently and watching their every action. I kept a close eye on Lisa's phone, which she still hadn't bothered to hide from me. I noticed that she was still texting Jason, her fingers dancing across the screen with a nervous energy. I felt that familiar anger bubbling inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. It was during one of those late-night surveillance sessions that I stumbled upon the mother lode. I found Lisa's phone left unattended on the kitchen counter. My heart raced as I grabbed it, my palms sweaty with anticipation. I scrolled through her messages, each one a dagger to my heart. There were flirtatious texts, inside jokes and plans for secret meetings. It was all there, laid out in black and white, a confession of their betrayal. I took screenshots of everything, documenting their sordid affair and saving it all to a hidden folder on my laptop. I could feel a twisted sense of satisfaction, knowing I was accumulating the evidence I needed to expose them. I wanted my family to see them for who they really were. They were not just betraying me, they were betraying the entire family, shattering years of trust and loyalty. After several days of covert operation, I felt ready to execute my plan. I knew I had to confront Jason next. The idea of face-to-face confrontation filled me with dread, but I also relished the thought of watching him squirm, of witnessing the shock on his face when he realized I knew everything. I called Jason and invited him over under the pretext of needing some brotherly advice. I could see the change in him when he arrived, the way he chuckled and acted as if everything was normal. The casual banter felt like a mask, but I was done with masks. I had no intention of letting him off the hook. "Hey man, thanks for coming. I need to talk about something important." I gestured for him to sit down, my heart pounding. "What's up? You sounding serious," he replied, a hint of unease creeping into his voice. I leaned back, trying to maintain my composure. "I've been reflecting on some things lately. You know how much I love Lisa, right?" "Of course, you guys are great together," he said, his brow furrowing. "Yeah, well, that's what I thought too. But it seems like love isn't enough when your wife is busy sleeping with your brother." I watched as his expression shifted from confusion to horror. "I saw you two together the other day, and I have the messages to prove it." His face paled as the realization hit him. "Wait, Sam, you can't be serious. It's not what you think." "Not what I think," I interrupted, my voice icy. "I have screenshots, Jason. I know everything. I know about your little rendezvous." He opened his mouth to protest, but words failed him as he searched for an excuse. Save it. I don't want to hear your lies," I snapped. "You both thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you? You thought you could hide this from me, but now it's time for the truth to come out." I could see him sweating under the pressure, the facade of confidence crumbling. "Look, Sam, it was a mistake. I never meant for it to happen. I care about you, man." "Yeah, well, that's not what it looked like from where I was standing," I shot back, my voice steady. "You've betrayed me in the worst way possible. I'll talk to Lisa. I'll fix this. Just give me a chance." He pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone. Fix it? I had no interest in fixing anything. "No, Jason, you've lost that chance. You both have. I'm going to tell the family everything. They deserve to know who you really are." He looked like he might cry, and honestly, it felt good to see him squirm. I wanted him to fully grasp the weight of his actions. "You can't do that. You'll ruin everything." I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "You already ruined everything the moment you decided to betray your own brother. This isn't just between us anymore. It's bigger than that." With that, I stood up and walked away, leaving him sitting in disbelief. I felt a mix of triumph and sadness. It was a victory over betrayal, but it was also the end of something I once held dear. Now it was time to execute the final part of my plan. I was going to expose them to the entire family, and I wanted it to be public enough that there was no way they could deny their actions. I could already hear the conversations, the shock, the anger, and the fallout. But it was necessary. They needed to face the consequences of their betrayal, and I was going to make sure they did. The days following my confrontation with Jason felt surreal. I was riding a wave of adrenaline, fueled by a mix of anger, betrayal, and a twisted sense of justice. I had made my decision, and there was no turning back. I couldn't allow them to continue living their lives as if nothing had happened. I wanted my family to know the truth about what Lisa and Jason had done, and I was going to make sure they did. I started organizing a family gathering, something simple, a dinner at my parents' house. I told everyone it was a chance to catch up and spend some quality time together, but the real reason was much darker. I wanted to create a space where I could expose the betrayal in a controlled environment, surrounded by people who would understand the weight of the situation. I spent the week leading up to it in a fevered state, my mind racing with thoughts of how I would break the news. As I prepared for the dinner, I felt a sense of calmness wash over me. I was finally taking control of the narrative, and it felt empowering. I noticed that Lisa was trying to reach out more, calling and texting, eager to smooth things over. She had no idea what I was planning. When I finally replied, I kept my messages vague. I wanted her to enjoy the illusion of normalcy while I schemed behind the scenes. On the day of the dinner, I arrived at my parents' house early to help set up. The familiar smell of my mom's cooking filled the air, a comforting reminder of better times. But as I watched my family interact, I couldn't shake the heaviness in my heart. They were all blissfully unaware of the storm coming their way. My mom fussed over the table, my dad cracked jokes, and my sister chatted away, oblivious to the tension simmering beneath the surface. When Lisa arrived, she was all smiles. She greeted everyone warmly, her laughter echoing throughout the room. I watched her closely, trying to gauge her emotions. Did she feel guilty? Was she nervous? I couldn't tell. But as the dinner progressed, I felt the weight of my plan pressing on me like a vice. It was time. After the main course, I cleared my throat, signaling for everyone to pay attention. The room hushed, curiosity peeking in their eyes. "Thanks for gathering tonight, everyone." I paused, letting the words settle. "There's something important I need to share with you all." Lisa's smile faltered, and I could see her tense up. I continued, my voice steady but laced with tension. "I've recently discovered that someone in this room has been keeping a secret from all of us, one that's hurtful and destructive." "Sam, what are you talking about?" Lisa interjected, her voice rising. "Let me finish," I said sharply, my eyes locking onto her. "This secret involves my wife and my brother. They've been having an affair." Gasps filled the room. My parents exchanged bewildered looks, and the atmosphere shifted from joyful to tense in an instant. My mom's face paled while my dad's brow furrowed in confusion. Lisa's eyes widened in horror as she registered what I had just said. "You can't just say that, it's not true," she shouted, desperation seeping into her voice. "Oh, but it is true," I retorted, my heart racing. "I have the proof." I pulled out my phone and began scrolling through the messages, each one a painful reminder of their betrayal. I displayed the texts on the screen for everyone to see, watching as their faces shifted from disbelief to shock, then to anger. "What the hell, Jason?" my dad thundered, turning to my brother, who looked utterly cornered, his usual bravado stripped away. His eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape from the confrontation. "Sam, come on, we can talk about this." Jason stammered, but the crack in his voice betrayed his panic. "Talk about what?" "How you've been sneaking around behind my back, how you betrayed me with my wife." I snapped, the anger boiling over. "This is insane," Lisa shouted, tears streaming down her face. "You're ruining everything. Everything was already ruined the moment you chose to cheat." I shot back, feeling a morbid sense of satisfaction as I witnessed the chaos unfolding. My mom stood up, her voice trembling with shock. This can't be happening. Sam, is this really true?" "I wish it weren't, Mom, but it is. I wouldn't lie about this." I turned back to Jason, who was visibly sweating now, his face flushed. "Look, I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake." Jason pleaded, but the crowd wasn't having it. My family had always valued loyalty, and his excuses fell flat in the face of undeniable evidence. My dad shook his head in disbelief. "You've betrayed your brother, Jason. I thought you were better than this." As the reality of the situation settled in, the dinner devolved into chaos. My mom tried to calm everyone down, but it was too late. The foundations of our family were shaking under the weight of their betrayal. I could hear murmurs of disbelief and disappointment swirling around me like a tempest. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I had done what I set out to do, but at what cost? I glanced at Lisa, whose face was twisted in despair, and my heart ached for the love that once was. But that love had been tainted by her choices, and I had to remind myself that I couldn't go back. As my family began to process the betrayal, I knew that this was only the beginning of a long and painful journey. I had exposed the truth, but now came the fallout, the broken trust, the shattered relationships, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. But as I looked around, Witnessing their shock and anger, I felt a sense of closure. I had taken control of my narrative and I was ready to reclaim my life. There was a long road ahead filled with healing and rebuilding, but I knew I had the strength to face whatever came next. I was done being a victim. It was time to move forward. The fallout from the dinner was immediate and overwhelming. The air in the house was thick with tension as my family tried to come to terms with what had just unfolded. I watched as my mom and dad exchanged glances, trying to process the betrayal that had just been laid bare before them. The silence stretched on, punctuated only by Lisa's sobs and Jason's pathetic attempts at justification. Eventually, my mom took charge, her maternal instincts kicking in despite the chaos. "Everyone, let's take a breath," she urged, her voice steady but shaken. "We need to talk about this. This isn't just about Sam, Lisa, and Jason. This affects all of us." My dad nodded gravely, his expression a mix of disappointment and resolve. "Sam, I'm sorry you had to go through this, but we need to figure out how to move forward as a family. Betrayal like this doesn't just impact the people directly involved, it ripples out." I could see that my parents were trying to be diplomatic, but their disappointment in both Lisa and Jason was palpable. I felt a surge of gratitude for their support, but beneath that gratitude lay a festering wound of betrayal. My emotions were all over the place: anger, sadness, and a sense of justice. But more than anything, I felt an urgent need for closure. "Mom, Dad, I appreciate you trying to keep the peace, but there's nothing left to salvage here," I said, my voice firm. "I can't go back to pretending everything is fine. Trust has been shattered, and I refuse to be the one who sweeps this under the rug." Lisa looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Sam, please, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "It was a mistake." Her voice cracked, desperation evident. "A mistake," I scoffed, shaking my head. "This wasn't just a mistake, Lisa. This was a conscious choice. You made a choice to betray my trust with my brother. You didn't just fall into bed with him, you actively pursued this. You didn't even think about how it would affect me or our family." Jason chimed in, his voice shaky. "I never wanted it to come to this. It just happened, man. We were just talking and then—" "Stop making excuses," I shouted, cutting him off. "What you both did was reprehensible. You took something sacred and turned it into a joke." The tension in the room escalated. Lisa looked from me to my parents, her expression shifting from despair to anger. "You think you're the only one who's hurt in this. I've been lost for a long time, Sam. I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I thought I could find solace somewhere else." "You thought cheating was the answer," I shot back, incredulous. "You didn't even try to fix what was broken. You just ran to my brother." "Let's not forget that it takes two to tango," Jason piped in, his own defenses rising. "I didn't force Lisa into anything. She made her own choices." "Don't you dare put this on her," I snapped, turning my ire toward him. "You're the one who took advantage of my trust. You're my brother. You were supposed to have my back." The argument spiraled further, each accusation echoing off the walls of my childhood home. I felt the rage bubbling inside me, but there was also an unexpected clarity. I didn't feel the need to fight for Lisa or Jason anymore. They had made their choices, and now they were facing the consequences. As the evening wore on, my parents tried to mediate, but it was evident that the damage had been done. My mom suggested we all take a break to allow everyone to process their emotions. "Let's take a step back and think about what we need to do next," she said, her voice soothing but firm. I stepped outside onto the porch, needing air. The cool breeze hit me, a welcome contrast to the heated emotions inside. I needed to gather my thoughts, to consider what my next steps would be. I sat on the porch steps, staring at the stars, feeling a mix of sorrow and a strange sense of relief. I had exposed the truth, and now it was time to figure out how to move forward without Lisa or Jason in my life. I needed to focus on healing, and that meant cutting ties for good. As the night crept on, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just going to wallow in my pain. I was going to reclaim my life. I knew I needed to speak with my family about boundaries moving forward, about how to ensure that this betrayal didn't define me or our relationships. The next day, I called a family meeting. I wanted to lay everything out, to set expectations and boundaries with my parents, and any remaining family members who might still be in touch with Lisa and Jason. It was important to me that they understood the impact of their choices and how it affected our family as a whole. Gathered in my parents' living room, I laid everything out. This betrayal goes beyond me and Lisa. I don't want either of them in my life anymore. I need you all to support that decision. I don't want to hear about them or how they're doing. I need to focus on moving forward. My parents nodded, seriousness etched on their faces. My dad spoke first. Sam, we're here for you. We'll respect your boundaries. This is a painful situation and you deserve to heal. My mom added, you're our son and we will always stand by you. It hurts to see you go through this, but we will support whatever choice you make. Their support strengthened my resolve. I was determined to forge my own path, to focus on rebuilding myself after this betrayal. I knew it would take time, but I was ready to embrace the journey and discover who I was outside of a relationship that had become so toxic. With renewed clarity, I felt the weight of the betrayal begin to lift. I wouldn't let it define me. I was ready to take my life back, to heal, and to become the person I wanted to be. I would move forward, no matter how daunting the road ahead might seem. The ties that had once bound me were severed, and I was free to start anew. The weeks that followed were both challenging and liberating. I immersed myself in work, focusing on my job and my own personal growth. I threw myself into hobbies I had neglected while trying to keep my relationship afloat. I began running again, something I had always loved but had abandoned in recent years. Each mile felt like a step further away from the heartbreak and betrayal, a form of therapy I didn't know I needed. I also made a conscious effort to reconnect with friends I had drifted away from during my marriage. I sought out the support of those who truly cared for me, surrounding myself with people who reminded me what it felt like to be valued and appreciated. They helped me rediscover parts of myself that had been buried under the weight of betrayal. My family was my rock during this time. My parents stood by my side, offering love and support as I navigated through the aftermath. I appreciated how they respected my boundaries concerning Lisa and Jason, never bringing them up unless I initiated the conversation. It felt good to know I had their unconditional love and encouragement. One evening, as I sat on my porch reflecting on how far I had come, I received a text from Lisa. My heart raced as I glanced at the screen, memories flooding in. She was reaching out again, apologizing for everything and begging for another chance. I've been thinking about everything, Sam. I'm so sorry for how I hurt you. I miss you. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling a wave of emotions wash over me. Part of me was tempted to respond, to consider her words, but I quickly reminded myself of the reality of our situation. Her apologies felt hollow, too late for a love that had been shattered beyond repair. I typed a response but paused before sending it. I appreciate your message, Lisa, but I need to be clear. It's over between us. I can't forgive what you did, and I don't want to rebuild what we had. I need to focus on my own healing and moving forward. After hitting send, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I was finally cutting the last ties that bound me to her, severing the remnants of a relationship that had caused me so much pain. It was time to fully embrace my new life. As the seasons changed, so did I. I started attending a local book club, where I met some wonderful people who shared my love for literature. I found solace in the written word, discovering new perspectives and ideas that helped me reflect on my own life. I also took up cooking classes, reigniting my passion for food and creativity, which had been stifled during my marriage. I even began to explore a new interest in photography, capturing moments and landscapes that brought me joy. It was an exhilarating feeling to discover new passions and to live life on my own terms. Months later, at a family gathering, I found myself surrounded by loved ones, laughter filling the air. It felt good to be back in the moment, to enjoy the camaraderie of my family without the shadows of betrayal looming over us. I could see the pride in my parents' eyes as they watched me thrive and rebuild, a testament to the strength I had found within myself. As I looked around the room, I realized how far I had come. I had transformed from a heartbroken husband into a man who was learning to love. himself again. I had faced one of the darkest moments of my life and emerged stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the quiet moments, I still allowed myself to feel the pain of the past, but I refused to let it define me. I had learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of self-respect. I understood that life was unpredictable, and while I couldn't control the actions of others, I could control how I responded. With each passing day, I felt lighter, more at peace. I had forgiven myself for the mistakes I made during my marriage, understanding that I had done my best with the information I had at the time. I was ready to embrace new relationships when the time was right, but for now, I was content with the journey of self-discovery. As I ventured forth into a new chapter, I held on to the belief that love would find me again, this time in a healthier, more fulfilling way. The future felt bright and I was ready to face it head-on, one step at a time. Life was waiting, and I was finally free to live it on my own terms.